we finally got to see Paddy again. For a second, I wasn't even sure if it was like spliced with old footage.
Yeah, that's what I thought because it really sounded like it was the same lines, and it's like, wait a minute.
This seems oddly familiar.
And like the behind the scenes, like you can tell he was so happy to be back.
Yeah, I obviously hope we get to see more. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword because a lot of people are getting really tiresome of the
The
Harrenhal
Harrenhals.
plot, but I do hope it leads to more scenes with Paddy. Um, and I think people just want to kind of change the scenery for Damon because Matt Smith is still killing it.
Oh yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
Caraxes is ready for a change of scenery.
oh, correct. He wants to get the fuck out of there.
He's like saying, "Come on, let's go."
Um, and Alice as well. Um, would not trust her as far as Caraxes could throw her. Never mind myself.
She's creepy.
She's very creepy. I've seen people compare her appearance-wise to Ramsay.
Yeah,
Um, with the theory that he's a descendant of her. It may just be a coincidence. They do look very similar. Obviously, she's a river, so she's a bastard. So is
yeah.
he. I mean, it's entirely plausible.
I mean, heck, maybe she's who knows who she shacks up with.
Well, speaking of shacking up, Damon is absolutely losing his mind still in haunted hotel Harrenhal, and is now having vividly sexual dreams of the mother he never knew,
Yeah,
which was a pretty hardcore scene even for the Throne verse.
absolutely.
I mean, at first it was just like, okay, she's clearly a Targaryen. This is nothing new. Incest is their thing. And then, of course, she calls him son, and you're kind of like, oh, okay.
At first, I kind of thought it was Viserys' wife. I was like, well, because you didn't really see the face up close at first, but then it's like, then she said, "You were my favorite since." Like, oh, we're going there then. Okay.
Somehow, this universe still manages to shock us. Even when we think we've seen it all the bells and whistles, they come up with something like that. But yeah, she did look very much like Emma, so maybe that's a Targaryen thing. Maybe Viserys had some mummy issues too.
Maybe.
Um, and mummy issues apply to King's Landing too. I mean, we'll obviously go over Aegon's aftermath first. So the aftermath of Rook's Rest, as Melissa's head is paraded through the streets of King's Landing, which Kristen Cole thinks is a great idea. He
Oh, yeah.
thinks of it as a trophy. But it clearly backfires because the local peasants of King's Landing see it as a dark omen and perhaps a bit of a reckless move on Cole's part.
Yeah. Because
Because
it's like they look at it like whenever you see a dragon down, it's like they know Rhaenyra is gonna respond,
yeah,
and there's a saying in the book, and I could be getting it wrong, but basically it's when dragons go to war, the realm burns, and
yes.
largely up until now, the King's Landing's been spared.
Yeah, they've managed to keep all of the warfare away from civilization, I guess.
And
But
that a dragon is down, and a big one.
yeah,
At least no small chicken.
she was a war veteran dragon. She was a fierce dragon,
Next,
and
next, next to Vagar, she was the oldest and most seasoned dragon.
yeah, tamed anyway. But these people, like they said, see these dragons as gods. So when one of them is taken down, and you see their head paraded through the street, they're like, "Holy shit! What the fuck did this?" Like, if this can happen to this godlike creature, what chance do we have?
And, it's that SpongeBob meme. Yeah, I'm head out.
Except for Hugh Hammer, which is a great name. It does sound so much like a wrestling name.
It does. Or some like 80s rock star.
He's got the look too.
He does.
Um, he he ain't going anywhere. His daughter is sick. His wife wants to get out of King's Landing. He wants to stay because, of course, he believes he has Targaryen blood. And for whatever reason, he thinks he has a role to play in this war. Even though he's been a peasant all his life.
Yeah. And then we also have Ulf the White, who is claiming to be the bastard son of Balon Targaryen, who is the father of Daemon and Viserys, which, this isn't like Maury on Westeros where you can prove it.
Can we get a DNA test?
So that's not a thing. I mean, he could be. We don't know.
No. But as we get to the end of the fifth episode, obviously, Rhaenyra and Lucerys, Jake, bloody different names, come up with this theory that there may be other people out there who have Targaryen blood but are not full Targaryens that can maybe ride dragons, because up until now the belief has been you have to be a pure blood Targaryen to ride a dragon.
Or of at least full Valyrian blood, which...
Or Valyrian, yeah.
Well, Baela? Yeah, that one. Baela.
The youngest.
I'm confused.
The youngest girl, Baela, yeah.
She has one. I can't... I get dragon names mixed up. I think she has Silverwing.
A small one, yeah.
But, she's turning into her father. It's, we saw it earlier. She wanted to burn Kristen Cole down.
Oh, yeah.
And Daemon would have.
Absolutely. Daemon would have he would have burnt the forest down.
Just have the chance of doing it.
Yeah. But when we get to episode 6, this plan doesn't quite play out, but as we know, there are more dragons out there who are unclaimed, and they keep mentioning Vermithor because after Vhagar, Vermithor is the biggest dragon, and is unclaimed, which, if they could tame Vermithor, would be a great weapon for them because, like we've mentioned in the last episode, I think, over the course of the season so far, Rhaenyra has been losing.
Yeah, and it's not been going... for reference, Vermithor was the dragon ridden by King Jaehaerys, who was the predecessor to Viserys. So he hasn't had a rider in probably at this point 30 plus years.
Yeah, the time frame gets away from me because
Viserys was king for around 25-ish years. And you got to think for the last several years of his life, I doubt Jaehaerys was riding a dragon.
No. We saw him in the very first scene in the first season, and he was like old and frail.
Yeah, he was known as the Old King.
Yeah. So also in episode 5, like I said, we get the aftermath of Rook's Rest, and that also goes to Aegon's fate, because it was left open-ended in episode 4. But he's alive, but very badly burnt and unconscious.
Looks like his dad.
He looks like his dad, except this piece is not... Well, this piece is melting off him instead of falling off him.
And if you noticed, and kudos to the props department and the makeup department for doing this, it was a mirror image. If you noticed, like on Viserys was the one side, and Aegon was the other side. Like, and the bandages were almost identically placed.
The costume departments are amazing, especially with all that makeup on Aegon. And he had, I think, 1 line in episode 5, 2 lines in episode 6,
yeah.
And he's still playing the hell out of this role.
Oh, he is. Like Tom Glencarney's been amazing. And he knows. Like Aegon knows what his brother did.
Yeah, and obviously he's very smart. He claims he doesn't remember anything, but Alicent is immediately suspicious of Aemond too.
I think everybody is. Like, I think the only one who really doesn't care is Kristen Cole. I think he's just sort of like, well, hey, this is what we got to do.
Yeah, I mean, Kristen obviously knows what Aemond was about to do at the end of episode 4, but his duty is obviously to the crown, which temporarily sits on Aemond's head. And at the same time, who the hell is going to argue with Aemond? He's clearly a psychopath. He's clearly very dangerous and clearly very powerful. That not even his own mother can talk sense into him. Oh, she tried.
And she got fired for it.
What? The Targaryens just keep firing their family. Aegon fired his grandpa. Aemond fired his own mother. It's clearly not a family business. Nepotism does not run very well in King's Landing.
And I will say, shows like this were not supposed to get comedy, but I gotta say, there was a scene, but before we get to that, you see in episode 5, Corlys is really struggling, and he's kind of dealing with the loss of his wife, which, if you notice, there's a scene in 4 where you see Meleys kind of flying over the bay and her back leg kind of grazing the water, which was kind of like a goodbye. And then you see Rhaenyra handing something to Baela, and she says, "Give this to your grandsire." And you kind of know what it is, but she wanted to name Corlys as Hand to the Queen, and Corlys kind of looks at it, doesn't put on. You're like, okay, what is he gonna do here? Finally puts it on in episode 6, but there's a scene in 6 that I absolutely loved, where Lara Strong, who's basically this series Littlefinger, basically says, hey, you should name a hand to the, your brother had Kristen Cole, but you need somebody. He's jockeying for position here. And Aemond is like, I agree. And he says, I want you to handle this. And Laris is like, yes, I got the job. And he basically says, no, you idiot. Go get my grandfather. And meanwhile, nobody's heard from Grandpa. Nobody knows where he is. Like, you hear Alicent going to her brother saying, hey, you talked to Dad lately? Like, he's like, no. Like, nobody knows where he is.
No. So, like, people have been complaining about the Daemon storyline, but I think the biggest crime of this season is we only had Rhys Evans for 2 episodes
we need
so
more.
far. I mean, he's
been great.
He must be coming back. I don't know if it's going to be in these next 2 episodes or next season, but obviously they're mentioning him. They're looking for him again now, so he's not gone.
No.
He's just out of sight, out of mind right now.
The scene, I think it was probably his best scene in this whole series, when he learns that Kristen Cole has dispatched Ser Arik to try and kill Rhaenyra.
Yeah.
Basically, he's like, he says, he basically says, you're an idiot. And Kristen Cole tells him, he says, mind your king. And he says, I am talking to my grandson, and my grandson's a fool.
Yeah. Otto Hightower takes no shit.
No.
And just that whole scene was incredible from him. Actually, from all 3 of them in that scene. But yeah, we definitely needed more Rhys Evans this season. It's had some highs and lows. I think last season was just so fast paced that they crammed so much of the early stuff in before we got to the actual Civil War, which we're spreading out through season 2, and we got 2 more seasons to go. So, I mean, if we think about it, they are taking one book and spreading it into 4 seasons.
And even like this storyline in the book is not all that big. Like, Viserys is such a minor character in the book. Like they don't talk about him much. Like
No.
he's sort of there, and like his illness is very brief. Like in the book, it's described as an illness. It's not said what it is. And his death, like he goes to take a nap and dies. Like it's like not the death that we saw in the show, and it was more drawn out. But there's a lot going on, and I think people, and this is one of the criticisms I've seen online, and Reddit, that it's too slow. Well, people are used to the Game of Thrones stuff. Like it's not that. It's different. Like there's more to come. I am telling you, without spoiling things, there is more. There are a lot more battles coming in the next season.
Oh yeah, I think people that complain that it's too slow are too accustomed to those final few seasons of Game of Thrones where they'd surpassed the books and it was big event after big events because they were racing to the finish line. But if you look back at the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones, 1, 2, 3, 4, they were slow paced. They were very carefully crafted, very drawn out, and they gave you every minor detail of every subplot.
Oh yeah, and we're getting that here. Like we're getting subplots that weren't even in the book, and it's they're changing a few little things here. We're getting more. People wanted more dragons. You're getting them. We're getting Sheep Stealer, for God's sake.
Oh, that scene where Baylor saw all the burnt grass and the skeletons was great. Very ominous of what's to come. I think they have mentioned Sheep Stealer in the show and how big he is and fierce he is. So again, that would be another great weapon for Rhaenyra's side.
Yeah, their Sheep Stealer. They haven't mentioned the Cannibal yet, which
Oh no,
Cannibal is another big one. Which you think Cannibal? Well, why do they call it? If a
literally.
dragon is called Cannibal, what do you think it eats? What do you think it hunts?
It's not just a cute name, it's a literal name. And this is also a wild dragon, so he literally eats whatever the fuck he wants.
And Cannibal, and it's referenced in the book, Cannibal has never had a rider. People have tried. Sheep Stealer never had a rider. People have tried.
Yeah.
But ask that one member of the Kingsguard how trying to tame a dragon. Ask him how that worked.
Oh. So yeah, this is the plan that we heard crafted by Rhaenyra and Lucerys at the end of episode 5. And then, of course, they put it into action in episode 6. And you're thinking it must work because if it doesn't, surely they're not going to try it again. But of course, it doesn't work. And they have to try it again because they need these dragons. But unfortunately, these dragons need riders.
Yeah. And they need to not be turned into Kentucky Fried Sir Stephen Darkling.
Mm. Oh, that was also the dragon trainer, I guess, who also got caught on fire, slitting his own throat as he's burning. That was a pretty vivid way to go too.
Yeah. But
But
this guy, Sir Stephen, which we saw him last season, loyal Kingsguard, you come to find out his grandmother's grandmother was supposedly a Targaryen.
yeah, I mean, you look at him, you don't see any Targaryen in him.
No.
And clearly, Seasmoke didn't either. So after this, Seasmoke flees, and there's this great scene where Rhaenyra finds out where Seasmoke's been spotted down by the bay, and she's just like, "Yeah, that's where he goes. So what?"
Yeah, she's like, it's what he does. He does that sometimes.
But Seasmoke seems to have chosen his own rider. Um,
Yeah.
which I as far as I know, is pretty unheard of.
Yeah, usually doesn't happen.
Of course, he was. Ah, shit, what's the name?
I believe it was
Valerian.
Adam Hall. Oh,
No,
you're talking. Ryder was Lenore.
Rhaenyra, yeah. Obviously, he was Laenor's dragon. Laenor faked his death. And it's kind of up in the air whether Seasmoke believes he's dead as well, or if he actually is dead now.
Died off
And
screen.
and the plan just was for nothing. But either way, Seasmoke has now kind of chosen a new rider in Adam, uh, which is kind of strange because it's almost like Seasmoke had a radar for, oh, he's got Valerian blood.
Yeah. There's a scene, an amazing scene, which I, I get the characters mixed up, whether it's Adam or Alan, which we know they are the illegitimate sons of Corlys Velaryon and an unnamed woman.
Yeah.
And the one brother, the bald one, which I think is Alan.
Alan. Thankfully,
You
he's
see him
bald.
shaving his head, but you zoom in, you see he's got the white hair.
Yeah, which of course is why he's shaving it, because he doesn't want to be seen as potentially the offspring of Corlys anymore.
And the rightful heir to Driftmark.
Yeah. Because they have that argument between them where, look, we're never going to be accepted. He doesn't look at us as his sons. We're never going to have anything. So we just make the best of what we have now.
And Corlys even knows they're his kids, but it's sort of like the whole, yeah, hey, how's it going?
Even Rhaenys knew. And she'd never met him before.
And she's telling Corlys, she's like, hey, we need to talk about this. And he's like, no, it's fine.
But
It's fine.
hopefully we see a more grounded Corlys now, that he's accepted being handed a queen, because he's been kind of a wayward traveler so far, just in and out of port. Now he has a role to fulfill, and also he probably wants to avenge Rhaenys' death.
Oh, yeah. And finally, somebody can guide Rhaenyra, because she's just been getting really bad advice. Like, she's listening to her son, her 16, 17-year-old son.
To be fair to him, he did come up with the trade deal at the Twins, and he came up with this theory about, they don't have to be full blood to ride dragons, right?
And I think he's kind of turning into Daemon a little bit.
I think they've all kind of got that trace of potential rage that Daemon has. But yeah, she's been getting some bad advice left, right, and center. Very much like
her advisors.
Yeah, which was great.
I'm the
Nobody kind of knew what to do. It's very much like Daenerys when obviously Tyrion was her hand, and we always knew Tyrion as a very wise and clever guy, but he was giving her terrible advice, and she was just losing everything.
She's got Corlys, so hopefully she listens and doesn't go, Mad Queen.
Yeah, this is why it's a shame that we lost Rhaenys, because I think she also was very wise and she could have given great counsel to Rhaenyra. Which is also why I think it was a huge mistake, as everybody probably does, when Aegon fired his grandpa, because Otto, for all his faults, is an incredibly clever guy.
I mean, let's look at it realistically. Like, Criston Cole, great on the battlefield, no denying that. He's good in tactics, but you need somebody in a war who can play the long game.
Yeah.
Otto Hightower plays the long game. He's been hand to the king for 2 kings before him. Jaehaerys and Viserys actually, he was Viserys' hand to the king twice. So, realistically, listen to Otto.
Yeah, he's the only one that's actually playing politics. Everybody else is just knee-jerk reactions.
Like Rook's
Although,
best, I doubt Otto would have advised on that.
oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of itching to see some tension between Aemond and Otto.
Oh yeah, and we also had that scene where Alicent was talking to her brother Gwaine when they were talking about their father, and also they were talking about her other son,
Her secret son.
Daeron Targaryen, who, there was question whether he was going to appear in the series or not, and we know that he is now. And Alicent's like, "Hey, what's he like? Like, go to Old Town and see your son." And he's like, "No, he's cool. He's kind. Like, he's everything you aren't. Like, you messed up with your other three kids.
Yeah.
Like, he's good. Like, basically, it's saying you live in King's Landing, you're gonna be a horrible person.
Yeah.
Like, the Red Keep corrupts people.
Very much like Harrenhal.
It's cursed."
I think, giant dragon battle aside, this for me was like the most Game of Thrones-esque episode so far.
Oh, absolutely.
It was very well written, very well paced. We got a lot of clues of what's to come. We got a lot of loose ends tied up. And there's still a lot up in the air.
I think we're done with Daemon at Harrenhal. I think when you look at it, if I'm thinking it right, look at the order of when he saw people. First person he saw was his late wife, Lena. Then he saw Rhaenyra as the younger Rhaenyra, aka Millie Alcock, which give me more of her. Like, she knocked it out of the park in the few scenes she had.
Yeah.
Then he sees his mother, which, we're not even going to go any further with that. And then he sees his father, not his father, he sees his brother Viserys, which, awesome. Patty, again, I cannot praise him enough. He knocks it out of the park every freaking time. I think it was things that he needed, that Daemon needed to come back to it. And even Alice is basically telling me, like, dude, go.
Yeah.
Go home. Like, basically saying, dude, go back to your wife.
Listen to your dragon.
And Caraxes is basically saying, like, dude, come on. There's a war on.
I'm over this fucking place.
Like, let me go. Let me off the chain.
And I think every single episode, someone is telling Rhaenyra, you need Daemon.
Her son is even now saying, you need him. Like, Baela has said, hey, you need my dad. Jacaerys is saying, you need Daemon. Like, how many people need to say, like, if he's not answering your letters, you have a dragon. Go to Harrenhal.
I mean, she certainly finally put her dragon to use at the end of the last episode, flying out to look for Seasmoke, who she was informed has a rider. Nobody knows who, they just saw a rider.
And we got a preview, which, makes me even more excited.
The preview looks great. We got a confrontation on the beach, and it seems like war is coming again. But we did skip over one thing. Rhaenyra and Mysaria getting a little closer than we thought.
Yeah, not scripted. I hate it because it's like, it's not that big of a deal, and people are up in arms about it. Like, people are saying, "Oh, why?" People don't realize, like, George R.R. Martin has said, it's about her. It's about her struggle. It's about Rhaenyra's struggle. Like, yeah, it's going to be a strong female character. Like, these people that are whining and bitching about this, read the source material.
Oh, just watch game. I've seen somebody say, like, they made House of the Dragon a lesbian show. I'm like, have you never seen Game of Thrones? We've had plenty of gay and lesbian stuff in Game of
And it's
Thrones
one
before.
scene.
It's one kiss.
And I mean, there were hints in the first season that, Rhaenyra and Alicent, maybe there was, a thing
Uh-huh.
there. You know, there was Laenor Valerian and Joffrey Lonmouth, I think that was his name,
Yeah.
having, they were together. And he even said, I curse the gods for making me as they did. Like,
So,
get over it. It's 2024, people. Just let it go.
and like I said, it's happened in Game of Thrones plenty
Yeah.
of times. So this is
Didn't
like,
Daenerys have a same-sex kiss?
yeah, this is like the 10th season of this universe that we've seen, and you're now surprised by homosexual scenes. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
These same people will literally watch adult content of two women kissing. Like,
And aside from that, she's really the only one that's kind of pushing Rhaenyra to be like, you should fight.
yeah, she's basically telling Rhaenyra, "Hey, you need to do something." And honestly, I think Miss Arya has been a better, advisor than anybody else. Like, to me, she is Rhaenyra's Otto Hightower.
Yeah. She wasn't very trusty to begin with, but she's become very strong counsel for Rhaenyra.
I still
Um,
totally trust her.
yeah, it's difficult, but you can see some loyalty there too. So hopefully she stays on the good side.
Hopefully.
And I dread to think what happens when Daemon finally comes home.
Yeah, that's gonna be a little bit awkward.
So yeah, we got 2 episodes to go for this season, and I think this last episode was like 70 minutes long, and then the next two are like 80 something. So
Yeah.
we're in for some good stuff for these final 2 episodes.
It's this is how Game of Thrones should have gone. Like, the last season, hour and 20 minutes, we could have gotten so much more done in that time. But thank God Dan and Dave are not involved in this show at all.
And I think George R. R. Martin is very much involved in the creative process
He
this time
is.
around too.
He actually posted something maybe a couple weeks ago that he was headed to England instead of writing Winds of Winter. That's a whole other thing. But he said that he was flying to England and that the writers were meeting in the writers' room to write out season 3. Like, season 3 is they're working on it. And I believe, because I remember when season 1 hit, he said he thinks 4 seasons they could do the show.
Yeah.
We're about at the halfway point. There's
still...
more coming in. Like, we forgot to mention, we also got to see another baby dragon. We saw Prince Aegon the Younger's dragon, which, in the book should be a little bit bigger at this point. And young Prince Aegon should be a little bit older at this point, but hey, we're not necessarily following the source material.
No. But I think the tide is definitely turning in Rhaenyra's favor as far as King's Landing goes. The people saw the head as a bad omen. Then, of course, she sent them boats of food because they're starving. So they're looking to her now as maybe she'll be good to us. Because these guys are just, they don't give a fuck.
And Aemond is just sort of like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about... Aemond only cares about blood and vengeance. Like, he's not addressing the needs of the people.
No, he just wanted the power.
And he's got it. And, there was that brilliant scene in episode 5, which was titled, I think it was 5, where, it's nighttime, it's in the throne room. He's looking at the throne, And then Helena says to him, "Was it worth it?" Like, she knows what Aemond did.
Oh, I mean,
Everybody knows what Aemond did, but they're not saying it.
no. And if anybody knows, it's Helena because obviously she probably saw it before it even happened.
Yeah. And he didn't say anything, so it's like, and then this episode we had, the riot in the street where you think, oh boy, the people are gonna come after Alicent and Helena, which almost happened.
Yeah. But the knights didn't help.
No. This is like, Kingsguard brutality here. Like, they chopped the guy's hand up and he was just reaching to Alicent for help.
Yeah, and I think that was the turning point which triggered the riot.
Oh yeah. Like, this is not gonna go well for them.
No, the Greens are in trouble, and Rhaenyra is starting to get stronger. So I'm really looking forward to shit hitting the fan in these last 2 episodes, and really looking forward to seeing more of these dragons come into play.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more. Vermithor, we got to look at him. In that scene with Daemon, Vermithor's huge. Like, not
Yeah.
Vhagar huge, but probably more like Drogon size, maybe a bit bigger.
Yeah, and we only got a glimpse of Vermithor in the first season when Daemon went down there.
But we got more coming, and I'm here for it. And I guess they are moving ahead with the Aegon the Conqueror series.
Oh, please. Yes.
Which,
Yeah.
rumors are true, give us Henry Cable as Aegon the Conqueror.
We definitely need to see some Balerion in action and not just
I
a
need
skull.
the Black Dread. I
Yes.
need Balerion the Black Dread. That thing is huge.
But for now, I guess we will wait and see the not quite so huge dragons, but still fucking huge. Like we said, the preview is out there for the next episode. If you don't want to see what happens in the next episode, then, as we always say, beware the internet because it is dark and full of spoilers.
You stand with a dragon of House Targaryen! What do you want?
All my life, I have endeavored to serve both my house and the realm, and somehow none of it matters.
It does seem to me that you've made rather a mess here.
Whose side are you on?
The old ways call for justice.
Prince Darren's dragon has taken to wing. The High Tower host will be unstoppable.
House Targaryen is the blood of the dragon. If any may lay claim to it, what are we then?
Thousands will die. With these dragons, peace will be restored.